Welcome back. We lost one of our co-hosts here. Mike couldn't join us for this second segment. I don't know, Dave. I think he was a little maybe embarrassed to be around me with my Capri Sun. I guess a grown man drinking Capri Sun could turn some people off. So he is not with us for the interview here, but we are very happy to be joined now by Chris Cotillo. He's a Red Sox beat writer, one of the Red Sox beat writers over at masslive.com. He's a friend of the show. We've had him on 5 or 6 times now, so we're always super appreciative of him joining us, and especially in the middle of this Red Sox wild card race here. So I know it's a busy time for you. So Chris, thanks so much for coming on again. How are you doing?
I'm good. Happy to do it. And as long as it was a strawberry kiwi Capri Sun, you're good.
See,
Oof.
I went with I've never seen this flavor, but it's called Moon Punch. We were talking about it
Wow.
before. It's very odd. It's maybe like some special edition, but
Just straight
yeah, not
carcinogens. Yeah.
full of carcinogens.
Right.
Absolutely,
Battery
the
acid. Yep.
maximum amount that they
hmm
allow in that one.
It's
So
I think it's a microplastic cocktail. That's the thing.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
but it tastes delicious. All right,
Yeah.
I don't
Well, that's the
care.
point.
All right, Chris, let's get to it. Let's start by looking at the rest of the season here. And I know right now a lot of the focus is on the playoffs, but us fantasy players are really, we're coming down to the home stretch here. We've got about a week and a half left of the season. So, looking at this schedule coming up, I'm just wondering what this rotation is going to look like. I imagine it may depend on what happens with this playoff race here and if the Red Sox clinch anything or what. But how do you see the rotation playing out, uh, particularly next week, just so we're able to kind of plan for who's going to be starting for those games?
Yeah. I mean, as long as Crochet, Giolito, and Bayo are on 4 days rest, they're going to keep pitching. I think
Okay.
we're seeing the wear and tear of, especially with the two who are not Crochet, the last couple outings, especially the last 2 days, have not been really good. Bayo was really bad today, got hit very hard by the A's. So they're going to ride those guys basically out of necessity. After that, this weekend, they're going to go with Crochet on Friday in Tampa. Then Kyle Harrison makes his first start with the Red Sox on Saturday, and then Connolly Early back at it on Sunday. Tolley's in the bullpen, so it looks like Harrison and Early get those two spots when they're needed. With the off day on Monday, they're going to try to have Giolito, Bayo, and Crochet in Toronto, and then figure it out based on where they are against Detroit, and that could get hairy. Do you pitch someone on short rest to try to get in, or do you pitch,
Mhm.
so and so, or do you hold? It's that I think is more TBA than anything. But the next 6 days, Crochet, Harrison, and Early, and then Giolito, Bayo, and Crochet gets you to the final 3 games. And maybe somebody like Dustin May comes back. I don't think they're really rushing that because he wasn't very good when he was healthy. But big picture, it's a tough place for a rotation to be in because you're relying as you're trying to get into the playoffs here on two super untested arms, and Harrison, who spent the entire year basically since he was traded for Devers in AAA, and Early in his third major league start and his first one not against the A's.
Yeah, I mean, really throwing these guys right into the fire. Especially, we talked earlier about Connolly Early, who I want to ask you about here.
Mm-hmm.
He's been just really impressive. I mean, he's passed. He's been thrown right in, and he's passed every test. I mean, going on the road to Sacramento for his first start, just dominated there. Pitched really well in his second start at home against Sacramento. So, I mean, everything has looked stellar from him. They've also had Peyton Tolley, who, as you mentioned, is now shifted to the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
But this has been really exciting for the Red Sox, right? I mean, you've got these two guys that have really ascended this year and are looking like they're going to be mainstays in this rotation for a long time. Out of Peyton Tolley and Connolly Early, who do you think, from what you've seen and from what you've heard around the organization, what do you think is the higher upside long term between the two of them?
Yeah, to me, it's I think Tolley has the higher ceiling and probably the floor.
Hmm.
I mean, between the two, Tolley is a real blue chip guy. We saw it coming out throwing like 100 today in a relief outing. He's really good, and we saw that in his first outing. Um, but he's a guy who was pitching. It was a two-way player at Wichita State 2 years ago and a two-way player at TCU last year. And he started this year at high A, and he earned it. And there was injuries that caused him to get all the way up here. That doesn't mean he is 100% ready. And that's not a knock. It's something he'd probably readily admit, something the Red Sox would too. Early probably isn't ready, but at least he's got the 2 pro seasons under his belt. Another guy who transferred from West Point to Virginia in college and then was taken. So, I mean, I think in an ideal world for the Red Sox, neither of these guys would have made it this year. You have to think about how much has happened. They've obviously lost a lot of guys for the year. Dobbins tore his ACL. Houck had Tommy John. Cutter Crawford missed a whole year with 2 setbacks. Patrick Sandoval never got back. Fitz is on the IL. Dustin May, Cooper Criswell. I mean, that's like 2 rotations worth of guys that are not available right now. And so you go to, Tolley and Harrison and Early. So tough to, I think, put them in this position. You don't want to have guys come up and have their confident shot if they struggle in the majors, which Tolley had, back-to-back rough outings on a West Coast trip in Phoenix and Sacramento. Early's obviously been really good, but, he gets pulled after 80 pitches the other night. Probably a weird spot to be in. Harrison will make his first start Saturday. So they're towing the line kind of out of, desperation, but also recognizing that these guys are young. They're good. They're not finished products, probably all of them. Harrison being the closest because he's pitched in the majors so much. But I think Tolley's the guy out of that group, and Tolley's the one that I think around the game is just looked at as a future stud. That doesn't mean, he's going to be that right now. I think you'll see it in flashes like we have. And it also doesn't mean that these guys are locks to be on the opening day roster when, they have a lot of these other pieces back. So the future is really bright. I think the future's here a little earlier with the pitching staff than we might have anticipated. And so there's going to be bumps and bruises there. But I think he is, one of the better pitching prospects they've had in a long time.
Okay, so that's interesting. You don't think they're a lock, Tolley and Early, to make the opening day roster next year?
No, I mean, I think it just depends on who comes back and who's healthy. Obviously, Bayo and Crochet are the guys who are going to be back. And part of that, you expect, Crawford led them in innings last year and he missed the entire season. Patrick Sandoval could be ready for opening day, a guy they're paying $10 million from former Angel. Hunter Dobbins was really pretty good. I know Yankees fans hated him because of all the stuff that happened, but he was a guy that was pretty good when he was here. Richard Fitz is in the mix. They're probably going to go, whether it's Giolito or another veteran, sign somebody or trade for Joe Ryan. So there's a lot of different ways this could go. I also think, in a big trade, something like Ryan, you're going to probably have to give up, one of Tolley or Early at this point, which is, you get to pay to play. We saw that with the Crochet deal over the winter.
Right. Dave, I can see the tweets now when, if one of these guys, Tolley or Early, don't make the opening day rotation, because I'm sure they're going to get a lot of hype in the offseason. People will be probably aggressive in drafting them. And then I could see the tweets already, the angry tweets towards the Red Sox front office, for the people who spent a lot of draft capital on these guys. But anyway. Yeah. We will see what happens with that. But you mentioned, we've been talking about Tolley and Early and their big seasons. And I'm wondering, are there any other players that fantasy gamers, Chris, should be aware of that are currently in the Red Sox minor league system that have seen their stock rise quite a bit and are ready to potentially be contributors next season?
Yeah, I think obviously there's a lot of hype about the password. Justin Garcia. We saw him make his debut at Yankee Stadium. He only got a handful of at-bats in a time when they needed him, with Ref Snyder down, Abreu down. Another guy, like, to me, I don't know if it works necessarily as much in the fantasy world, but like in the real world, it's like there's so much hype. These guys are mythical creatures at AAA. And then, let's see, I can look at it really quick. The password, who dominated and got up to AAA and was good there, he was 1 for 7 with 5 strikeouts and 5 major league games. He didn't start many. And Red Sox fans don't talk about him like he's this magical savior anymore, because it's like, oh, he already debuted in like the smallest sample size ever, right? But he's a guy that, again, in either way, in the big leagues next year could factor into a crowded outfield mix here or be a trade chip, in a deal for another area of the roster. So I think he's one. The thing with the Red Sox right now is that, everybody who has gotten to AAA has pretty much gotten to the majors. We've seen major league debuts from, Campbell, Meyer, Anthony, obviously, but then these totally early Garcia. Like, there's been a lot of big time prospect debuts. Maybe a guy like David Sandlin at AAA, and then I think the big wild card, Luis Perales, who was a top pitching prospect who had Tommy John. He came back and was, I think, pitched one inning at AA, pitched one inning yesterday in Worcester and struck out the side. He's got electric stuff. But, a guy coming off Tommy John surgery, do you start him in the majors next year? Find that hard to believe. So there's, the part about this team being contender and being super young and having as many injuries as they have had is just like everybody's here, So in a way, maybe the farm system rankings don't look too good by April or May of next year, but that's because everybody is on the big league roster.
That's a good thing, right? I mean, sometimes it's that's a good problem to have. How do you actually say the password's name? What a ridiculous nickname, by the way.
Yo Stinson.
Yostinson Garcia. Okay, so for anybody listening who doesn't know, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
His brother is Johan Fran. He's a catcher in the Red Sox system, and I decided he should be called the username, but I'm not sure if that's stuck yet.
Pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. So some names to keep an eye on there. Let's talk about someone who has been a major contributor to the major league roster this season, and that is Trevor Story. We talked about him in our first segment. I mean, he's had just an absolute resurgent season here, finally staying healthy. I mean, that's really been the big thing for him. Hold on one second. I lost you, Chris. Okay. So to your knowledge, has there been anything that Trevor Story has done differently this season that has enabled him to stay healthy and effective and on the field? I mean, he's been on the field for over 600 plate appearances, and he hasn't come close to that in 3 years. So anything that he's doing differently?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there are guys who are labeled to be injury prone, and it's true, but it's a lot of freak things.
Mm-hmm.
I think he kind of falls under that category. Like with Chris Sale, I always felt like, he had Tommy John and the elbow was going to blow out. And there was some weird collarbone stuff, whatever. But a couple of the injuries, like at Yankee Stadium, he got a comebacker that bent his pinky in half, and then he got into a bike accident and broke his wrist. Like, is he injury prone or is that just bad luck? And I think with Story, we've seen kind of a little bit of that, where I feel the same way over the last few years. His first year, he got hit in the hand with a hit by pitch. Could happen to anybody. It didn't feel great, but they misdiagnosed it, and they didn't get him on the right treatment plan. They didn't realize there was a fracture in there until like a month or 6 weeks later. And so they were not treating it as a fracture, so he missed more time than they thought he would. Then his arm blew out, which there were concerns about that, so that falls under the injury-prone category. And then last year, the one that got him was diving for a ball in the hole in Anaheim, came down extremely hard on his shoulder and tore his labrum and came back relatively quickly from it. So to me, it's like, you get hit by a pitch or you dive, and these things happen over the course of a season. It's not a pitcher who has an elbow thing every single year. So, to me, there was no reason toward the end of Sale's time with the Red Sox that you couldn't expect him to be back. It just hadn't happened. And of course, he showed that last year in Atlanta when he won the Cy Young. With Story, it was kind of the same thing. Like, he's good. Like, he's fine. Nothing's happened. You always can say that until the next thing. But, this is one of the better athletes that I've covered. One of the harder workers. He built with his big Red Sox deal. He built a huge baseball complex in his backyard, batting cages, fields, all that type of stuff that he, invites his teammates down to train. It's not a lack of anything. It's just kind of freak things. And it's shown that, I look at, he's not a great indicator OPS wise. It's around 740, but 25 homers, 30 steals, 90 RBIs. He became the second player in Red Sox history ever to do that. If I say the other name, you will hate it, but it's Jacoby Ellsbury. And so, I like talking about it actually injury prone. So, he's meant a lot. And especially, I think, because Bregman's been pretty bad offensively now for 6 weeks or so, or especially the last month. Story's been that kind of middle of the order bat, professional hitter who can drive in runs when he needs to, pop the ball out of the ballpark. And, as of last night, he hadn't been caught stealing yet. He was 31 for 31. He finally get nabbed. But, I think it's been a really good bounce back year, one that the Red Sox needed, especially from a guy, that age.
Yeah, and he's been fantasy gold. I mean, he's according to the Razzball Player Rater, Dave, he is the 23rd ranked player overall this season. So it's just been a boon for anybody who drafted him
And
at
what if
really.
you excluded May when he
Yeah,
was like 2
where he did
for
nothing.
100?
But...
Yeah,
Forget it. Yeah, I mean, it's been unbelievable since then.
So you don't, Chris, you don't think he's going to opt out this offseason, right? There's no chance, because I think that's in his contract.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think there's two things at play there. Number one, if he does, the Red Sox can void that by just picking up a team option at the end of the deal,
Right.
Which is reasonable. The other thing is he's the type of player who, and I know it's always dangerous to play this game because everybody's got agents. He actually fired his after he signed with the Red Sox because of how his free agency went. And everybody's got agents and the players' unions involved. I think he feels like because of the injuries and what he owed to the Red Sox that he's would opt in if it's a flip of the coin. Also, he's a major leader. And the other thing is, no matter what happens over the next 10 days, I think anybody can agree the Red Sox are really well positioned moving forward for next year, even with, Bregman questions and Giolito and some of these other guys. The core is, the young core plus a lot of the, proven guys, Crochet, Bayo, now Chapman are going to be back on the pitching staff. Whitlock, who's been excellent. And then, maybe a healthy Casas and Anthony Meyer, Campbell's still in the mix, all those types of young guys, Narvaez. So I think the core is there. He probably wants to see that through, is my guess.
Let's talk about a major piece of that young core. You mentioned him, Roman Anthony. If you could give us an update on his status coming back from his oblique injury, and also just what has been your impression covering him, and what are your thoughts on his rookie season so far?
Yeah, today Alex Cora said he did like a 30-minute Peloton workout and then laughed it off like, if that's all he can do, then he's not making much progress. I said, speak for yourself, man. Jesus. Just, I'd be ready for the majors at that point. But he's not close. I think that they were going to see about pain tolerance and letting it heal. I think it's like a muscle tear, basically, how bad the strain is that happened on the swing. So it's all rotational. It's all about being able to swing, ferociously, which is what guys do in this game. And so I don't think he's has any chance of being back before the end of the regular season. The wild card series being 24 hours after the end of the regular season, the timeline doesn't change there for me. You play 3 days in a row, you get Friday off. And so, if you think about it now with the playoff schedule the way it is, you play, 5 playoff games, potentially all road games. Not that matters in this situation within the first week of the season ending. There's not much, lag time there. So Cora originally said game 1 of the ALCS would be the goal. Obviously, they'd have to get there. I don't know. He's not. Obviously, it's going to be if he feels good enough to go to assess the rookie season. Really, to me, and this is controversial among people here. We've had this debate. I think he's the MVP of the Red Sox season, and put it this way: like he basically led them for an extremely long stretch in which they were one of the better teams in baseball. And when he hasn't been on the roster, they've been mediocre or average. He's the one guy that makes a huge difference. Since they put him in the leadoff spot, the whole engine was working better. And he still, I don't think has hit his offensive peak. He didn't hit that many home runs while he was healthy, starting to a little bit later. But this is a big power guy. And it was just bat to ball, crazy exit velo, pretty good defense, and the power, other than a couple homers here and there, wasn't fully there. But I think, this is a perennial all-star. I think this is a guy who is a true blue chip superstar. The contract to me is a steal already. Mm-hmm. I think for fantasy purposes, for real life purposes, one of the better players in the game for the next 6, 7, 10 years. And, I say that because of not just the raw talent, but the way he carries himself couldn't be more impressive for 21-22. Understanding what he has to do in his job, understanding how to handle the pressures of Boston, talking to the media, fitting into the clubhouse seamlessly. Like, you see a lot of guys come up in the majors with a little bit of the head up your ass type of thing of not really knowing like how to work a major league clubhouse, or you've been the best player your whole life and you've been the guy, and now it's time to be quiet in the corner. And Roman Anthony came up and realized, hey, that might be the role, until he realized that the veterans respected him so much for his maturity and his talent, they didn't want him to do that. And so I think he's already a leader. I think he's like the complete package. And I don't think the loss can be overstated of what, they've become in the last 2 weeks without him. And it's not just who's getting at bats in his place, but it's where everybody else falls in that lineup. And it's been really, really striking. And so to me, I think he's the Red Sox MVP this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's hard to disagree with that. So very exciting times.
Story's got the much bigger body of work, so I think that argument's fair. But and if you look at pitchers, Crochet obviously and Chapman, but it might be a little too much intangible in the way of Roman, but it's legit.
Yeah, that Garrett Crochet guy is pretty good. I think I should give him his due. But I know, Chris, you got to run, so we're going to leave it there. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us. If you could tell our listeners where they can find your work and where they can find you on social media.
Yep, masslive.com. Cover the team along with Chris Smith and Sean McAdam. We'll obviously have had every game covered this year, and that'll continue. And then the Fenway Rundown podcast and Chris Cotillo on Twitter, Cotillo.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Talk soon, Chris. Take care.
Thanks a lot.
All right. All right. We are going to leave it there for today. We will be back with another episode next week. Our final episode of the season. We'll be talking with Kurt Hogue of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. So for Dave Funnell, for Mike Carter, I am Chris Torres. Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Baseball Beat.